I'm Vic Boccard. I was born in New York City. The date was 3/23/25, which makes me 75 years old at this time. And I grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Where were you on December 7th, 1941?
I was in high school.
What kind of an effect did it have on you and the guys your age?
Well, obviously it was a complete shock, and as a matter of fact, I was at Wesleyan University. They had offered me a wrestling scholarship, and my family and I went up there to see about admissions. And when we got up there, everybody was running around looking despondent and excited, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. So I finally found a cousin of mine who was the main reason for my going up there, and he told me what happened. And that put a damper on any conversations with the admissions director. It was a Sunday anyhow, and so we just decided that was a bad idea and headed home to New Jersey.
Okay, what'd you do after that?
Went back to high school.
Okay.
I was 16 or 15 at the time. I graduated from high school a year earlier than I should have, and so after high school I went to college. Well, I graduated in 42, but I graduated at 16. So I had to wait until I was at Muhlenberg College, and then when you're in college in 42, everybody was enlisting in one of the branches of the service, and the ones in college got the opportunity to go to OCS. So I was lucky, and I think we had 330 in a high school graduating class, and half women, and we had 23 die because we were class of 42. But a lot of the guys were like 18 or 19 when they graduated from high school, and they went right in, and they needed bodies, and I couldn't. I was too young.
But still, it was a time where you, like them, everybody enlisted at that time, though.
Yeah, everybody. There were 9 of us who were very, very good friends. And we all got together and voted to what branch of the service we wanted to go in. Well, 7 of them wanted to go in the Air Force, or Air Corps at that time. And Tom Murray and I dissented, and we said, nah, you guys go in if you want, and we're going to go in the Marines. And 2 of the guys got killed. And I enlisted in the Marines while I was 17, and then got into a V-12 program, which was kind of a unique program, but most of the college students were enlisting in various branches of the service, and I wanted to be a Marine. And so they accepted me in this V-12 program, which basically was an officer training program,
Okay, where'd you do your training?
at Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which was the same school I had attended as a freshman.
How long did you train?
We were there for 3 full semesters after I got accepted in the Marines, and we were students, but we also took military training at the same time. We learned short order drill, and we took swimming lessons and diving lessons, and at the local swimming pool, and we went through obstacle courses, and we in effect were 2 different people. And part of the day we were students, and the other part of the day the Marine Corps had us. and we lived in the dormitories. There were still civilian students there. V-12 was basically a combination of Marines and Navy, and we were housed alphabetically, so I had one Marine as a roommate and two sailors as a roommate. And depending upon your age and how much schooling you had, that was when your education ended, and you then went into the other part of the process. I was there for 3 semesters. Then I went down to boot camp, and we thought it would be a snap because we'd been wearing the uniform for about a year and a half, and we had learned, we were pretty salty. So basically, we thought it would just be a walk to the park. It wasn't.
Where'd you go to boot camp?
Parris Island, South Carolina. And the first thing they did was shave our heads and make us realize that we were lower than whale stuff. And they treated us as rough as they could because they wanted to show these pencil-pushing college kids what real Marines were. So it was an excellent experience. And then from there, I went to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and for pre-OCS. And then when we completed that, I went to OCS in Quantico, Virginia.
We're gonna get back rolling here. And you can go ahead.
Okay, so I was in the Marines for 42 months, and I never got out of the United States. I was known derisively as a stateside Marine. I wasn't happy at the time about it, but they kept sending me to schools. After I got out of OCS, and incidentally, in those days, the Marine Corps needed a lot of officers, as did the other branches of the service. But we weren't commissioned. We were appointed. We were in the U.S. MCR, so our regular rank was platoon sergeant. And but we served as second lieutenants during the period.
Any of the people that you trained with when you were in the training and the V-12 program or anything, did any of those guys ever go overseas? Did some of those guys go out before you were supposed to? Or?
Oh yeah, about 95% of them did. Most of them went into rifle platoons, and I don't know how I got lucky or unlucky. You know, I was only in the middle of my class. I wasn't the the leader, and they got shipped overseas. And somehow an opening came for combat intelligence, and I ended up in that category. One of the guys that was with me at Muhlenberg was Harvey Lembeck, who became a movie actor and semi-famous. He appeared in a lot of shows and dramas and movies, and he was, I wouldn't say he was a friend of mine, but he was a good acquaintance. And they sent me to places like aerial photography school, and then combat intelligence school, and then Japanese language school. So I was one of the better educated Marines against my better judgment, while most of the other people I'd gone through this V-12 program with were out serving their country in actual combat. So I was lucky, I guess, although at the time I didn't think so.
Did you have a particular specialty in the Army? There's an MOS or...
Yeah, combat intelligence was my specialty, and that basically means that you man the forward command posts and you send information back to the company commander, the division commander. For example, you may, if you were in actual combat, you may say that there's tanks at grid coordinate G7 or something, and send over some air support or whatever it is. So, no, I asked the guy why how I got into combat intelligence, because the procedure was based on when you graduated. Like we had 320 in our graduating class, and I was like 161. And the first two guys could get an air liaison, and somebody else could get into supply, or they got their pick based on their ranking in the graduating class. And all of a sudden, instead of sent to a rifle platoon like everybody else, I got sent to combat intelligence. And I asked the captain that was there, and he said, well, he said 2 openings came up after the selections were made. He said, and he said you had an high IQ, so I gave you, so I sent you. And the reason I took Japanese language training was so that we could interrogate any prisoners that we might capture, and also we could identify weaponry and pass that information back to the central control.
Still remember any of the Japanese?
Ohayou gozaimasu. Watashi wa shiroin desu ka? Itohei no hako desu. And don't ask me what it means.
Money well spent.
Yes. At the time, I could speak it fairly
You were
fluent.
ready, though. If you had been shipped overseas, you were well trained.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, they were training us for an invasion of Japan when they dropped the bomb. And that was our primary function.
Jumping back, what was the impact at that time for you and the guys around you of the atomic bomb?
We were delighted because we figured it saved many millions of our armed forces. Because we knew if we had to invade Japan, it would be a long and bloody battle. And it took its toll, obviously, in Japanese lives, but it more than made up for it by saving both Japanese and American lives. It was a courageous judgment on the part of Harry Truman, and the right one. When I got through, then they started the point system after the war was over, and so I ended up at Great Lakes Naval Training signing discharges, and then I went to the Pentagon, and I got discharged from the Pentagon, sent to Bainbridge, Maryland for the final discharge. I then had my option of signing over as a first lieutenant or getting discharged as a platoon sergeant. And I got discharged as a platoon sergeant because I wanted to go back to college. I had so much time when I was at Great Lakes that I took courses at the Marine Corps Institute, and that I got credits that helped me in college. I mean, it put me all I had to do when I got back to college after I got out of the Marines was go for a year and a summer to graduate. I went back to college, and I went to the University of South Dakota, and took full advantage of the GI Bill.
Explain what the GI Bill is for people who don't know.
Okay, it was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to our country, from the standpoint that many of the people that were discharged would have gone back to the farm or the factory or worked in jobs with no real future. And this guaranteed anybody who wanted to go to college, who had served in the armed forces, room, board, tuition, and $65 a month, which was big money at that time. And so many people took advantage of it. And these are some of the people that have become our leaders in commerce and politics and other places, because some became governors, like I can't remember his name, but he was an ace from South Dakota. Yeah. What was his name?
Joe Foss.
Joe Foss, right. Yeah, we knew him because he was at the University of South Dakota. And there were so many people from ranches and farms at the University of South Dakota that really made a mark for themselves when they got out. But it took place all over the country, and now you had an educated populace, and you had people that could achieve greater heights, both in the type of work that they could do and the money they could make, and I think it was the beginning of one of the most peaceful and probably the most satisfying period of times in our lives. And I will be everlastingly grateful.
Where did you go after college then? What did you major in, too?
Oh, I majored in English, and then since I had a lot of GI Bill left, I got a master's in it too. And from there I went back to work in a New York advertising agency.
How long were you there?
I was there for about 3 years, and I still had GI Bill left over, so I took some courses at Columbia, which helped me in my professional life. And then met a beautiful red-headed Irish gal, and we got married and moved out to Colorado, and I started my own agency.
That was what kind of an agency?
It was an advertising agency, and I had worked for an advertising agency in Denver for about, a little less than a year, and decided, hey, I can do that myself. So I started my own with a good friend of mine who was in the Marines with me, Fred Jacobson. And so we had Boccard, Dunshee, and Jacobson, and I've been in the advertising business ever since. And even at my advanced age, I'm still enjoying it.
Now, one of those friends was a really long-time good friend, wasn't he?
Absolutely. It just seemed that wherever I went, Fred Jacobson from South Dakota went, and we became very good friends. And that was the reason I went to the University of South Dakota, because I wanted to get out of the East. And it was a tremendous experience. We were going to go to the same college, and then Fred, or Jake as we all called him, got a scholarship to South Dakota State, so that didn't happen. But I ended up at the University of South Dakota, and those were probably the most pleasant years of my life. The people were wonderful.
Yeah, you...
And then after, when I started my agency, Fred had been working for the city and county of Denver, and I had come out to Colorado to be the best man at his wedding, and that's how I discovered Colorado. And I was working in a New York agency at the time, and I thought, boy, the lifestyle out here is so much better than it is in New York. And so when I got engaged, I conned my wife into moving out here. And she was very happy about it. And Jake became my partner in the advertising agency.
When did you come to Broomfield?
I came here in 1959, and we were looking for we were in southeast Denver. We had a small home, and we kept having children, and we outgrew it. And so I think we came out to Broomfield about 7 or 8 times before we found the house that we could qualify for and that we liked. And it was the greatest decision in the world, because I can't think of a finer place to raise a family. And all 5 of my children went through school from kindergarten through high school in Broomfield.
Okay. What was Broomfield like what was here?
Oh, I'm guessing it was 1,500, 2,000. And the JCs controlled the city. They were the most active group because everybody was about that age. And so when I moved there, the first thing that they told me was I ought to join the JCs, and I did. And met a lot of wonderful people like John Atkinson and Joe Mazzola and Dwayne Barry and Dwayne Wiley, I'm sorry, and many other people, and we had a ball. And then we got involved in the incorporation of the city, and I co-chaired the committee to get Broomfield incorporated. We lost the first vote, and about 6 months later we came back and won. Both votes were within 50 votes, very, very close. And then I was fortunate enough to get elected to the first city council.
You stayed active in Broomfield in one way or the other over the years too, didn't you?
Absolutely. I love it, and I was glad to contribute what I could to the growth of the community.
What were
And
some of the things you did here in Broomfield in that category?
well, as a member of the first city council, we wrote most of the ordinances. And I've been active in Optimist for a while, and then when that became a noon club, I joined Rotary, and I was mayor pro tem. I served on the Boulder County Regional Planning Commission. Another man and I started Toastmasters of Broomfield, and I've been active. I was also partial founder of the Broomfield Boosters Club. I joined the Country Club and served on their board, served on a number of boards throughout Broomfield.
During
Yeah.
that time, we've been talking about World War II. Were most of the friends that you had out here, were they GIs, ex-GIs too?
Yes. I know down our block, which was on West 4th Avenue, we had about 7 families whose household heads were former GIs. My neighbors on both sides and people across the street, and we were experiencing suburbia, and that was just becoming into prominence at that time. And it was a wonderful lifestyle, and Broomfield was a unique community because we started from scratch. So we, in effect, became the city fathers. And I never thought I'd become a city father.
With all these guys, do you think the experience being in the military helped them to be leaders to create a community like this?
Absolutely. You learn discipline, you learn working together, you learn to establish goals and attempt to achieve them, and there's a camaraderie. I mean, we'd lie to each other all the time about our military experiences. And I didn't have very many, but I could lie with the best of them.
Do you think that overall, after all of it was over, that it's a general feeling that all of GIs that came back felt it was a great experience, that if they survived and came through, that really helped their lives along?
Well, certainly they gained a measure of maturity and a sense of value that they wouldn't have gained otherwise. Obviously, not all the veterans felt that way because some had so many harrowing experiences that it impacted on the way they conducted their lives, but the vast majority benefited, those that survived benefited tremendously. I know I was just a pretty callow kid when I went in, and I gained maturity in a hurry.
What about overall? Now, this is, you came out here years ago. Are those people still the friends that you pal around with?
A lot of them are. We have a Saturday morning old timers breakfast club, about 9 or 10 of us, and we've all been in the military, and we meet every Saturday morning and solve all the world's problems. And the other thing that I didn't mention was I started writing my column, a newspaper column, in 1959, and I wrote it for about, well, I'm guessing 15 years, and then I switched to a Denver newspaper. And in 1992, I moved my office from Denver back to Broomfield and started writing my column again. And I realized I'd missed it.
Good. How often does your column?
It comes out every other Wednesday on the opinion page.
How many do you think you've written over the years?
Thousands. Many thousands. I've got about 6 books full of columns that I'd written in the past.
Okay. Just a couple of questions here, in kind of in general. One, what do you think right now about the fact that Broomfield's becoming a city and county?
Well, one of my biggest problems was dealing with Boulder when I was on the city council and also involved in school boards and everything else, because they were the big dog on the street, and we got often what was left over. And that prevailing opinion hasn't changed very much. And the fact that we can call our own shots and not have to rely on the largesse of Boulder is a great advantage. And obviously it's working out very well because of our tax structure. We're getting monies back because of this new shopping center, and I think we're growing at a good pace. There's still a hometown feel, and it's still a wonderful place to raise a family, and we've still got outstanding neighbors. I've never had a bad neighbor in Broomfield, and I've had many.
One thing, back when it was 1,500 or 2,000 people, could you ever envision the kind of high technology that's come in here?
Absolutely not. The one thing that I used to enjoy was if you'd go to Safeway. Well, I'd enjoy it, but my wife didn't. If I was shopping, it'd usually take me 2 hours because I'd run into everybody I know and we'd always exchange pleasantries and conversation. And now if I go to Safeway or King Soopers, I'll probably run into maybe one person I know, and that's about the extent of it.
Going to Safeway was quite a bit different when you first started going there. It was a different place, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The first Safeway was in what was the old Broomfield Shopping Center, which has now been displaced by Target and some of the other stores, but it was a meeting place as well as a shopping place. And I used to enjoy mingling with people like Bill Greenwald at his hardware store, and Ken Hoyle at the bank, and now we've got a number of shopping centers and a number of areas where you can buy your goods, and so you give up one advantage and get another.
What do you think about the young people today? We're talking about World War II veterans. How many do you think have any understanding of what happened, what you guys did?
Well, I think up until a few years ago, the knowledge of World War II was somewhat limited. But I've been talking to a number of classes in schools, and I've got grandchildren who are, even my 3 Texas grandchildren are writing for information about World War II because they're taking it up in their schools. And the classes I've spoken to in Broomfield are extremely interested. And I think it's a good thing that you're doing this type of video, because obviously at our age we're not going to be around here much longer, and to get the stories of some of the people who have been in combat and have experienced this greatest generation opportunity is going to be something that can be used in schools and libraries for a long, long time.
Do you think it's kind of important just to do this from the aspect of the veterans telling their own stories as opposed to somebody interpreting or just doing an overview of World War II?
Oh, sure. You get a entirely different feel of what happened, and it authenticates the actual experience.
So overall, what would you like to see done with the videos that are being done? Do you have ideas of that?
Well, one of the things that we can do is to build up a library of videos that can be checked in and out, can be sold. But basically, I think it's a wonderful store of information for schools, and it depicts a period in our time that probably will never reappear again. I didn't have a very interesting military experience. I almost felt like a slacker, because every one of the other guys got into combat of some kind, or at least they got sent overseas. One of my friends became a supply officer or something in one of the safe islands, but
Everybody had to be there to help and supply,
right.
and if a job wasn't done, somebody had to do it somewhere.
Yeah, and you don't make your own decisions.
No, you don't.
Somebody, it could be the luck of the draw. I was talking to Saul Fox, and he was in the Marines too, but he got in late, and they took everybody through G and sent him into Iwo Jima as an invasion, and he was F, Fox. So, it's the luck of the draw.